You're good.
Thank you. Well, good evening and welcome to our May board meeting. Yeah, please. We welcome those who are doing virtually and taking time to be with us, and we also thank those that are in attendance with us. As we're doing the social distancing and our numbers are less than 20. It is unique, but it's much appreciated. We're excited to get started, and we'd like to excuse Janice Christensen, who is not with us tonight, and Bruce Jardine, who was with us, just not present. He's on the phone. So with that, we'd like to get started with the Pledge of Allegiance, and I've asked Vice President of the Board, Dean Oldmore, to lead us that. Thank you so much. I'm to remind anybody that does speak tonight, if you make sure you have a mic, this is being recorded, and speak clearly into the mic and fairly loud so we don't, we had a little bit of glitch, I guess, last month, so please just help us with that if you would. Board, I'd entertain a motion, as our first item on the agenda would be the consent calendar.
I'll make that.
Motion by Paul, second by Dean. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Thank you, board. Motion carries. The next item on the agenda would be the recognitions, and I believe Superintendent.
Today we had an extraordinary day. We had a large number of district office personnel that made visits to homes, in most cases, in one case a school, where we recognized our Teacher of the Year, Classified Employee of the Year, and then 3 first-year Teachers of the Year, elementary, secondary, and special education. In all cases, we made sure that we were appropriately physically distanced. There were noisemakers in neighborhoods, and it was just a fun day. Board, our greatest wish is that those 5 would be here tonight, but they're not able to be with us. I hope they're listening to us. We're so proud of them. They're remarkable teachers and employees. Our desire is that next fall we're able to bring them back so that they can be introduced to you and you can meet them and their families. I've asked our directors to each kind of give a summary of these, and so we're going to start with Cammie Alexander, who will introduce to you our first-year Teacher of the Year for elementary, and then Gina will introduce to you our first-year Teacher of the Year for secondary. Quinn Carlinzi will introduce the first-year Teacher of the Year for special education. Then Art Hansen, Assistant Superintendent, will introduce to you our Classified Employee of the Year, and Lori Rasmussen, Assistant Superintendent, will introduce to you our Teacher of the Year.
Thank you. Oh, did this turn on? It's a pleasure to introduce you to Brittany Weston. I can't wait for you to meet her. We had many first-year teacher applicants this year that had been nominated by principals. And I didn't know Brittany well. I knew of her well because her principal had been bragging about her all year long. We had talked about a little gal that was in her class that had come from a transitional first into her classroom. That was very difficult. In elementary terms, we call them runners because they tend to run away and they're difficult to catch. But Brittany struck me immediately for being a genuine, caring teacher in the classroom who truly loved her kids, even the hard ones, which makes me love her more. Kind, all the way through, head to toe, kind. She's very smart. I'll allude to a couple things as I highlight from the letter that Stacy wrote. But one of the most important things about her is how thoughtful she is about her craft. She understands kids. She understands that the most important thing she can do is have a relationship with those kids. That they come into her classroom knowing that she cares, knowing that she loves them, and knowing that they are safe there. And that's exactly what she has done. She had us in tears by the end of her interview because she was missing her kiddos so badly, and she started to cry. And we all did too, I think, didn't everybody? I did, for sure. So some of the highlights from Stacy Roundtree, her principal's letter, differentiating to meet kids' needs. She's a pro. She's a first-year pro. Teaching one of the most difficult kids in the school. Transitioning, did it so well. I wouldn't say flawlessly, because there was a lot to learn and a lot to change, but she did so well. Built an incredible relationship with this little one. She implemented some strategies for success. She tweaked them as she needed to, and it's worked out so well. This little gal is flourishing. She's positive in her classroom, and she works really hard to make sure that every student is treated with respect, not only by her, but by the other students in her class. She's got a great smile. She's got a kind heart. She is a good soul, and so very happy to have selected Brittany Weston for the elementary first-year teacher.
Good evening, board. I hope you're staying safe and well, and you're looking safe and well. That's good to see. I am so super honored to introduce to you, tell you a little bit about Aaron Yates. He is the automotives teacher at Roy High School, and that is a place that is, of course, dear to my heart, and I can speak very just empathetically about what he has done for the automotives program at Roy High. He entered a program that needed a rebuild. It needed to be rebranded. There were some challenges that had been faced by the school and by the kids, the community, and he stepped into kind of a situation where he needed to say, I'm going to take this program to a whole new level and give it a whole new look. And that's exactly what he's done. Matt Williams describes Aaron Yates, Matt Williams, the principal, describes him as a piper of students. He truly cares for and connects with each student. One of the things that impressed me about Aaron as we were listening to his responses in our interview is he is so articulate. I can't wait for you to meet him. He has this large presence about him. He has the presence of a leader. When he walks into a room or he's talking to you virtually, you can just feel his impact. And I'm so thrilled for the kids at Roy High School that get to be in his class because I think they can feel that positive impact as well. He set a high bar right away. He said, these are my expectations for your behavior in here. And we are gonna take this program to a new level. He, in his first year, going into his second year, has built a full-time program, 8 full classes of automotives, which that's a quick build. So it shows you that he truly is a Piper student. Some of the words that I picked out of Matt's letter and Rod Belknap, Dr. Belknap's letter, and Charlie Nielsen's letter, the CTE coordinator, these are the ones that stood out. Knowledgeable, articulate, organized, dedicated, and compassionate. One of the things I loved about his interview response was he said he went to school, he comes from industry, but something was missing. He went back to school up in Aggie land, and he went through a program very intentionally to learn how to take STEM components and embed them into his automotive curriculum. So he's kind of turned automotives on its head a little bit, and he's teaching kids about other content areas at the same time that he's teaching automotives, which I think is just amazing. He's also bringing industry leaders into his classroom, providing some real-world application opportunities for his kids. He's got all sorts of plans for that going down the road if we can get out of this COVID crisis. And after my visit to his little house in Perry today with the blue door, he filled up the door when he came to the door. It was our first visit, and I could see the absolute shock on his face, but at the same time I could see that he just embraced this honor with a lot of pride, and I think that's great. I'll just finish really quickly with a couple of comments from Matt Williams. And I think this sums it up, Roy High School is a better place for students because of Aaron Yates. He is everything that one could ask for in a teacher, and we need many more teachers like Mr. Yates. Just wanted to make sure you kind of got a glimpse of him, and I would like to acknowledge him as the first year Teacher of the Year for secondary this year, Aaron Yates.
Superintendent and board, it is my honor to let you know that Carly Plant was our first year Teacher of the Year for special education. Carly Plant is assigned to Bates Elementary. She's a resource teacher, and she's focuses on the 4th through 6th graders, and although that is her assignment, she educates anybody who gets in her way. She'll educate the little ones, the big ones, the ones in special ed, the ones not in special ed. It doesn't matter. Carly Plant is an educator at heart. She is a product of Weber School District. She attended Pioneer, Walquist, and Fremont. She has 2 children, and they attend Weber School District at this time as well. The first thing you notice about Carly when you meet her is her energy, her enthusiasm. She has a big personality, and she is a bundle of energy. She's a self-proclaimed hugger. COVID-19 prevented the superintendent from having this experience on the doorstep, and as he went up to the doorstep, all I could think of is, I didn't warn him. She's a hugger, and I know you'll keep your distance. I didn't know if she had it in her to keep her distance, and so as you approached, I thought, oh no, what did I do? I forgot to tell him, but you didn't have the experience I did. Physical distancing didn't exist when I met her a year and a half ago when she was doing her student teaching at Majestic, and I was introduced to her very quickly, and I got to know her very quickly through a great big hug. And it was very apparent she was going to have a positive impact on kids right away, and she has shown to do that. Equal to her high energy is her genuine love and concern for kids. You'll know when you meet her, hopefully the first of next year, you'll see that. You'll see her big personality, and you'll see her genuine care for kids. She spoke in her interview about an experience she had at Weber State. She was going to school to go to elementary education, and she participated in the CAPES program, which helps students with disabilities at Weber State. And she said, in that moment, I knew I was a special educator, and she never looked back, and she shifted gears, and I apologize a little bit to Cammie that she had that experience, but I'm so grateful that she did, because she's a special educator at heart. She was nominated by Laura Wright, her principal, and the first thing that Laura Wright speaks about was her energy, her passion. That was all throughout her letter. She talks about the joy she brings with her every single day to the school and to the classroom. She speaks about her ability to jump in any situation with any student or staff to help in any way she can. She talked about her commitment to relationships and to people. And as she spoke about her teaching abilities, it wasn't all centered around academics. There was a little bit about her academics and ability to make that learning connect with kids and their experiences, but so much of it was about her teaching social skills and helping kids self-regulate their moods, to talk about it, to become advocates for themselves. So for this and other reasons, she was selected as the first year Teacher of the Year for special education.
Davids, it's my pleasure to present to you tonight our Classified Employee of the Year. As you know, we have thousands of classified employees, and to just select one is a difficult task. Last Wednesday, our committee met and did virtual interviews with wonderful people, and I'd like to thank those administrators who took the time to write a letter of nomination for all of these wonderful people, and those that were not selected but received a great honor and appreciation by their administrators who took that time. Our Classified Employee of the Year this year is a wonderful lady at Roy High School also, and of 24 years. Her name is Connie Malin, and when I try to describe her role, well, she started off as 24 years ago at Roy High School as a CTEA, and she moved into the computer lab. And as we moved away from computer labs and more towards the Chromebooks and our Ascend program, she took that over. And that's been, as you know, a pretty big task, taking that on, especially during this time because it became critical in our home-based education for our students in our district. So she is the point person. She's the one everyone's calling and emailing. This includes students and parents throughout this whole time. But it's not just what she's done just recently. She has taken on so many roles. It's like other duties as assigned. She is always willing. Whenever anyone asks her, an administrator says, we need this done, she's the one that does it. She's also over there testing, all their testing, and she's proactive. Every year, our juniors get to take the ACT test, and they get to take that free. And she's over that program, but she went and got Roy High approved as a pilot school to give students 2 chances at the ACT test. So Roy High is our only school that gives the ACT test twice, and she's been working to provide, even this spring, with both virtual tests and so kids can do it online, and also paper tests, which she loves kids and she wants them to succeed and give them every opportunity. As we interviewed her the other day, you just see that she didn't want to talk about herself. She just kept on wanting to refer to kids. And we asked her, what do you love about this job? And she said, it's being with the kids and having those relationships. She said, I get to work with kids, I get to work with computers, and she said, now I'm the ed tech coach too. And so that's another duty as a son. And then she said, now I'm even working with parents and trying to help them and guide them through this technology that they're unfamiliar with. So she told a story also that touched us about a 17-year-old young man, and she mentioned, she said, every year I select a couple students that are struggling, that don't look like they're going to make it to the finish line. And so she picks them, then gives them additional supports and encouragement, guides them, and she says, I've had success every year with a couple kids that wouldn't have made it. And there's one 17-year-old boy, he was a young father, he was about ready to give up, and he decided, with her encouragement, to go to the ATC in a welding program. And she says it was just so rewarding when he came back to the school and told me that I made all the difference. He said, I had no clue what was out there available for me. Now I know, and I'm on the right track. That's just the power of loving kids. And this is an aide who gets to know the kids' names at Roy High School. Sherry Hyder was our curriculum director and over testing. She calls her a superstar. Gina Butters, who's worked with her, says she's the glue that holds everything together. Matt Williams said she's dedicated, highly organized, and empowered to do what is best for kids. It's a pleasure for me to introduce her name today. I can't wait till you get to meet her in person with her family, her fan club, sometime this fall. But our Classified Employee of the Year is Connie Malin.
we have some amazing employees in our district. So Superintendent and Board, it is my pleasure to speak with you today about the Teacher of the Year. And that's quite an honor, as Art talked about, the Classified Employee of the Year. But really, Alan Reese was an easy choice. He is an amazing teacher, and so I'm just going to tell you a little bit about him and his family, and then we'll get on to some of his great accomplishments. So Alan has taught school in Weaver District for 34 years. He has taught all of his years at Lowman View Elementary. In fact, before he went on his mission, he was a part-time custodian at Lowman View. The Reese name is well known in the Lowman View area. His mom happened to be the head secretary at Lowman View for 26 years. And actually their careers overlapped for a bit. And they were able to serve students together at Lowman View. His dad was an assistant superintendent for Weaver District, J.H. Reese. And he is well known, and the contributions that their family contribute to the Pleasant View and Lowman View area is amazing. So he's quite a guy. For our district, he serves in many different capacities. He's an ed tech coach, so he helps his fellow teachers with technology in the building. He's an ISM, and that's a mentor that helps teachers integrate technology into their teaching, and he works with our incoming new teachers, and he does an amazing job with that. He's been a Brain Blast instructor. You know, our big Brain Blast kickoff that we have, the tech department does an amazing job, and he's been an instructor since the inception. So for 14 years he's been a Brain Blast instructor. And in talking with Lynn and Nick, no matter what the topic of his session, it's always overfilled. There's people in the background, and he is the highest rated instructor. So, I mean, and there's some pretty smart people at Brain Blast, so that says a lot. Alan has 2 kids, and they went to Weaver schools. And as you can imagine, he spends a lot of time dedicated to school. And his wife, Stacy, has always supported that love of teaching and commitment. He's really a legend. And when I was talking with Claire, and I think Jeff was there, and we were talking about the Teacher of the Year, our foundation secretary, Jamie, heard me say his name. And she's like, oh my gosh, Alan Reese, my 2 oldest kids didn't get him. But we won the lottery, and Marley was able to be in his class. And so he's that teacher that kids hope and pray that they get the experience to be in his class. So that is Alan. He's always been an amazing teacher, that's no question. But this pandemic really allowed his exceptional teaching abilities to shine. So what he did was, during this soft closure, he would spend nights and weekends getting his online digital classroom ready, right, and getting everything on Google Classroom, so that during the day he could help his fellow teachers with their lessons, so that they would be able to help those kids. So think of that. He's doing all this extra work just because he wanted to make sure that his teachers were able to provide their students with the learning experiences that his class was experiencing. So that one act had a huge impact of the learning on all of the students at Lowman View. So that's just some of the things he does. This story I thought was really super telling about him. Lynn Raymond, he works a lot with the tech department, and this is just the kind of advocate that he is for Weaver District and for students. But they were going one-to-one up at Lowman View, right? And you know how parents have a lot of questions about that. PTA, the community council, they're not maybe sure if that's the right direction to go. And Lynn's a pretty, well-spoken, literate, and he was going through some things. The principal was doing some things, but then Lynn said, you know what, we have a teacher here that I'd like you to hear from. So when Alan got up and spoke to technology and the correct use of technology and the way that it could move students forward, the whole meeting just shifted, and the whole attitude around going one one-to-one now was seen as this good, awesome thing. And so that's just kind of the guy he is. Like I said, he's always on the cutting edge of technology. Lynn said no matter what it is, Alan's out there trying it out. Marley, Jamie's daughter, talked about how they 3D print. They were 3D printing before anybody was 3D printing. But he does it he uses technology in a thoughtful way. It's never just to use technology for the sake of saying, I use technology. So even with his 3D printing, it's very purposeful. They print every student in the school a tool for school. And so, everybody's involved. So he's just kind of the unbelievable guy. I have some juicy stories, which, oh, by the way, when we saw him today, everybody that was with us could see that it was painful for him. He is humble to the core. That he was like, just, oh, I appreciate you coming, but kind of let me get back to work. It's kind of like, so anyways, Board and Superintendent Stevens, it's an honor for me to present to you Alan Reese as Teacher of the Year.
I must say that's very impressive. I want to congratulate everybody who was awarded the award tonight, as well as those who were nominated. The principals, I echo Art in saying the effort that went forth in producing the letters and the committees, and I'd just like to take a minute and turn it over to Superintendent Stevens for sure.
Thanks, President. Just kind of a few summarizing thoughts. This is normally a night that it's standing room only in here because all of these marvelous teachers and employees and their families, and it's just such a time of celebration. We hope to bring that back. And I congratulate not only those who were recognized that you heard about tonight, but all those who were nominated. Also think it's important to recognize Lane Finley and Cami Orr. They do a remarkable job with this process, and it's so well organized. Today, even though we weren't able to celebrate it the way we traditionally do, it was a celebration. They all got yard signs with their names on it, and there were noisemakers. I'm not sure if Dave Hells if anybody's been able to take the
He's keeping it.
horn from him. And maybe one other board, all of you know that traditionally we've got a tremendous supporter in our community that sponsors a dinner at the country club, and that's Tony Davino. I was with Tony last week, and he expressed real regret about not being able to do that this year. That is a highlight for Tony, and he does it quietly, doesn't like fanfare, but we regret that we weren't able to enjoy that tradition that was a part of this celebration and recognition of just great employees.
Thank you, Superintendent. I agree. Board, any thoughts? Not on there, but I just want to open it. Well, okay then. We'll move on to the next item, which would be a discussion or an action item of approval of a revised policy 4200 school fee and fee waiver policy on a second reading. Superintendent Stevens, please.
President, with your permission, maybe we can combine 4200 with 4210. We're on the second reading of both with these policies, and this is the board has worked on these policies now for a number of months. If you remember, before our first reading in April, we had two public meetings as required by state law in March and February. So this has been something that we've been addressing now for 4 months in board meetings. Policy 4200 is the school fee and fee waiver policy. In that policy, it redefines what a fee is, brings it into alignment with House Bill 250, new legislation that was passed in the 2019 legislative session. We've had a number of people, Gina Butters, Clyde Moore, Carrie high schools, junior high schools, principals, athletic directors. This has been an all-hands-on-deck effort to get this policy as well as 4210 to this point. We have not had any feedback on policy 4200 or 4210. 4210 are the actual fee schedules and spending plans. Now, there was not previously a requirement for spending plans, and so 4210 includes not only the fee schedules, but the spending plans associated with those fees. So, President, I would recommend on a second reading the approval of policy 4200, school fee and fee waiver policy, as well as policy 4210, the actual fee schedule and spending plans.
Thank you, Dr. Stevens. Board, rather than repeat that, you heard the proposal. I'd entertain a motion to accept.
So moved.
So moved by Jan, second. Second by Paul. Any discussion?
Just a big thank you to those who have really worked hard on that. I know that has been a heavy lift, and I think it speaks well that we have not had a lot of pushback because it has been so well vetted with both our administrators and our public. So thank you to those people.
I echo that. Thank you, Jan. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Thank you, board. The motion carries. Bruce, you still with us? I just want to make sure if he wants to.
Still here,
second
John.
or something.
Still here, John.
Very well. Thank you, sir. All right, the next item on the agenda would be the approval of the new policy 5230 on gang policy, second reading. Dr. Stevens, please.
President, with your permission, I'm going to pass these two, policy 5230, the gang policy, as well as policy 4370 on graduation requirements to our Student Services Director, Carla Porter.
Please, Ms. Porter.
Thank you, Superintendent Stevens Board. The state has mandated that all districts have a separate gang policy in place. And up to this point, we haven't had one. So this new policy defines and addresses what gang behavior is, what's prohibited at the schools, and also that districts have an intervention and different kinds of programs in place for gang prevention. So even though this is a separate policy, it's 5230, it's within our 5200, our student discipline policy, so it falls under that. It's also very important for us to have this policy because we apply for a gang grant every year, and we need to have a policy in place in order to continue to receive funding. We have not had any questions on the first reading, so we are looking to have you approve it on a second reading.
Very well. Board, you've heard the second reading on the new policy 5230 gang policy. I'd entertain a motion to accept. So moved by Doug, second by Dean. Any discussion? All in favor? Aye. Aye. Motion carries.
Aye.
Thank you, Bruce. There we go.
Voice.
That's awesome. Carla, if you'd like to carry on with 4370, please.
So thank you first of all for that. We're excited to get that one in place. So we have updated policy 4370. This is in our graduation requirements. To include a provision that regards course grade forgiveness that's consistent with board rule. Now this board rule and new provision in our policy allows a student to retake a course or to take a comparable course to replace a grade in 9th, 10th, 11th, or 12th grades. The board rule has been in place for about 3 years, but we've been allowing students to go through this process, but we have not had a policy in place and we haven't been consistent. For example, we might have, let's say one high school allows a course for a student to retake or a comparable course and another high school does not. So we have included, and I'm sure that was in your packets, the form that we've also added to this. So on the second page, I know you shouldn't get excited about a form, but you will see an exact process and procedure students will go through. And what we've added to make sure it's consistent throughout the district, that you will have a principal, parents have to sign as well, but a principal consult with the director of curriculum. That way, everything is going through the same channel, and we see what is being offered, and we can make sure it's consistent across the district. So, in order to provide this consistency, we're asking you to look at this and approve it on a first reading, policy 4370.
Thank you, Carla. Board, you've heard the presentation, and I entertain a motion to accept revised policy 4370, graduation requirements, on first reading.
I'll make that motion.
4370.
First motion by Janice, second by Dean. Any discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Aye, motion carries. See you next month. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
Next item on the agenda would be the selection of an architect for the new high school. Mr. Scott Zelmer, please.
I'm on the X. So, anyway, Superintendent, President Ritchie Board. 1994, we opened Fremont High School. Been a few changes in Western Weber County since then. And recognizing that the board, I was going to say with malice and forethought, but without any malice and lots of forethought, the board gave us the permission to start looking at the process of developing plans for a new high school on the west side of our district. This process, to be done right, takes a lot of time. And so we had an RFP to select architects so that we have time to do that right. And that RFP happened in March. The Capital Improvement Committee took a little different process this time. A number of you here were involved in that. But instead of just having architects come in and do a 45-minute dog and pony show and a presentation on a board, we actually went out and saw their work. And we were able to walk through buildings that they had designed and talk to not only them about what their thoughts were and why they did what they did, but talk to the districts and talk to the schools about how did you think they did when they did what they said they were going to do, and then talk to them again about what they would have done differently. And so we had, it was about a 6-day process. Each one of those architects, there were 6 architects who were involved. We had a full-day interview process with each one of them, and we learned a lot. We learned a lot about that, and after that was over, the Capital Improvement Committee came back together and unanimously selected MHTN Architects to be the architect to design our new high school to be built at some point in the future out in western Weber County. So at this time, I'd like to recommend MHTN Architects to be our architect for that new high school to be built.
Thank you, Scott, for that presentation. Board, you've heard the proposal. You've also been part of that proposal, which we're grateful for, and I'd entertain a motion to accept the selection of MHTN for the architect for the new high school in the west area. Moved by Paul, second by Doug. Any discussion?
Let me just say, I was part of a group that traveled to 6 different high schools and looked at each one, and they were all very impressive, very different, but I think MHTN is going to give us the product that we want and that we need, and I feel very comfortable about recommending that.
Thank you, Board Member Lewis.
President, could I say one other thing
Please.
before you take a vote on it? We understand that we have to get the public's approval through a successful bond in order to build this high school. And some might question, how can the board select an architect before the public has provided approval for us to build a school? And this is our thinking, and it's the board's thinking. I just want to make it public. You know, when we build an elementary or junior high school, we've built enough of those in recent years that we can take a basic footprint to the public and say, this is what you'd be paying for. This is what you'd be buying, if you will. But because it's been 26 years since we built a high school, we don't really have something that we could take to the public and say, this is the product. This is what you'd be paying purchase it. And so we definitely want to honor that concept. We know that we cannot proceed with the building of a high school until the public gives approval. And we're not taking anything for granted by selecting an architect, but rather we're trying to be very thoughtful to our taxpayers and say, when we're ready to come to them with a bond, possibly as early as November of 2021, to say this is most likely the largest purchase on that bond, and this is what it will entail, this is what it consists of, and be able to bring a plan to them. So again, I just want to emphasize publicly that we're not taking anything for granted. We're not assuming that the bond is going to be successful. We know that there's a lot of work in terms of seeking public input and feedback and informational campaign, if you will, to help educate our public on the needs. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to lay the groundwork so that we're able to provide our public with sufficient information so that they can vote on that bond and do it with knowledge of what that will entail.
Thank you, Superintendent, for spelling that out. Go ahead.
Just like to add to that, that was really informative to go on that tour, I also went to. So rather than just have the architects come and present, so to have a certain artistic flair, for want of a better description, we met with the architects, but also with the administrators, with teachers, people right there in the trenches. We had an opportunity. How do you like the new school? What would you do again if you did it over? And we got some excellent, great feedback that would bring forward, and appreciate Scott Zellmer and his crew to arrange all of that, to do that. That would be very informative. That would be very worthwhile to do that. And even that went from Provo High School in the south to Green Canyon in the north, and kudos to Gina for putting up with Provo High School and all the Cougar logos down there. She made it through it. So,
You helped me.
congratulations.
Well said. And I must agree with all that's been said, and thank Scott, Jeff Walker, others behind the scenes that put this together, that can really give credibility to what the superintendent just laid out there when it comes time to do that. And I feel very confident as I went on a couple of those tours. We were very involved in that process of being able to say we've got a great product that's going to move forward with a great person who can direct and design this, knowing what our goals are and what we're trying to get here as a school and not a trophy for them on the school, most bang for our buck. So having said that, and not belaboring that, I just want to give Bruce the opportunity where he was involved as well before we take the vote. Bruce?
Well, thank you, John. Appreciate that. Yeah, I was very impressed with what Scott had put together as far as those visits to the high schools. I think what we can accomplish by having an architect on board right now is that not only can we have a plan to present, but we can mold that plan to the taxpayers' needs and to the needs of the students in that area. So I think it's imperative that we have an architect on board and have a firm direction going forward and be able to guide them in our needs and our wants as we move forward.
Bruce, well said. Thank you very much. Having said that, I'd entertain a motion to approve.
So moved.
Oh, sorry, we've approved. I'm taking a motion I'm just taking a vote. That's what I'm taking. Holy cow. We're do better at Royals than that. Take a motion. All in favor?
Aye.
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 Aye, thank you. That motion carries. Scott, there you go. Thank you.
Good work.
We've come to the end of our agenda. However, before we close, I want to tell you, everybody and those who are listening, I don't know how many we have. Oh, 5. Still, you ought to see the aura in this room of the people who are still making this district work in a time when it's so crazy. The excitement on credibility of the kids, their needs, what's going on, the direction where we're at, getting kids through this, getting our people safe. I don't know if we got anybody sick in the district. We're 6 feet apart everywhere. They're following everything. It's impressive. And it's a pleasure to serve with you, with everybody. And with that, I'd entertain a motion to close our meeting.
So moved.
So moved by Jan. Second? Bruce, you want to do second? Go ahead.
I'll second that.
Ah, boy. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye,
Aye.
thank you. Be safe. Thank you very much, everybody, and staff for preparing, and have a great